Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and this is Hangout number 83. Welcome to everybody who's in that chat room. Everybody's been very much chatting away. And by the way, if you see me doing this during my show, it's not because I'm nervous. It's because we suddenly have a heat wave today, and I'm sitting here getting my show, getting ready to go, and I'm like, why the heck is it sweltering in here? And I looked at the temperature, and it was 80. And I'm like, well, I guess air conditioning would be useful, especially with lights, So, can everybody hear me well here? Oh. If I had to fan myself during the whole show. Hold on a second. This is also messed up. Things are messed up. All right. Okay. It's one of those days, loud and clear. All right, even heard the intro. Fantastic. Okay, welcome everybody. I think I won't go through the whole list. Florence, Scarlett, Vera, Katie, Sarah, Michaela, Kelly. Maybe I will. Strega's here too. Who else is here? Who did I miss? Did I say Florence? Sally is here. CJ's here. Mary's here. Vera's here. If I still say that yet, so many people. I'm going to start repeating myself. Marion's here, and I think I've got everybody, but if I don't, and you're coming in now, welcome. And if you'd like to be in the chat room, please do click below to Patreon and join. That supports the channel and allows you to be in all the live chats. And just for all of you who are new here, or who've come here and haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell so you get notifications. And always remember to check the playlist because there's so many cases I have on them. And if you don't want to go through all my playlists to search for something, go to YouTube search and put in Profiler Pat Brown and whatever you're interested in. And then you might find the case you didn't think I did. So anyway, freezing rain with power outage, Sky Ricky says. That's up in Canada. So, yeah, my daughter has escaped Canada, and now she's in Ireland at the moment. And it's very overcast there, but it's still very green. So it's not exactly raining. So my family's having a good time over in Ireland without me. What about that? Anyway. Okay, so I'm going to start the show because I was asked, you got to do one of those Dear Abby things. And so I thought I'd start on a light note because I just thought, dude, you got worse problem than you think you do. So this has been all over the internet. But this guy says the problem is they're having a baby, he and his wife, and a little boy. And she wants to name the little boy after her deceased brother in honor of him. And the name is Charles, which would not be such a big deal, except for their last name is Manson. So hubby is not exactly pleased. He's like, this would be a terrible name to give my son, Charles Manson. Are you crazy? He'll go through life. People will always be laughing at him and saying, oh my God, it's Charles Manson. And she's like, oh, you're making too much of it. And so he went online and what do you think, guys? And most people think it's not a good idea, that people do know who Charles Manson is. And some people suggest making that his middle name instead. Yeah, okay, so David Charles Manson. And I'm sitting there listening to this, what people are saying. Not a good idea, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, maybe you ought to think about who you married. Because, all right, maybe your wife does love her brother. That he's no longer with her and she, wants to remember him. There's a heck of a lot of ways to remember your brother. A photo in the hallway. You can name something after him, a building, your house. You can write a book about him. You can have a whole beautiful photo array. You can have it flashing, sitting next to the, in some room. You can have different pictures. One of those electronic things. Flash your brother's picture. You can make a locket. There's piles of ways you can remember your brother who you miss. However, giving your son the name of your brother when you know the consequences of that makes me question what's wrong with you. Why would you burden your son who has never met his uncle, right? Is not around. Why would you burden your son for his entire life, every day of his entire life, with a name that is going to be he's going to be made fun of and it's going to bother people? And it's obvious. So It's not a great name to name your kid. Why would you do that to your son? And all things pop up in my head like Munchausen's by proxy. Like, does this woman you're married to, maybe you got more problems than what she wants to name your son. Maybe the problem is she might have a personality disorder and think it's amusing to give her son this name. So people can constantly say Charles Manson, and she can give her little stories and her explanations. And maybe she wants to torture her son. Maybe she wants to be that woman who puts an X on her son and then says, oh, people did this to him and people did that to him, and oh, woe is me. So dude, I think your problem isn't with the name, it's with the wife. And unfortunately, you're already married to her and she's already pregnant, probably had the baby by now. Good luck, dude, because you got more problems than the name of that kid. And that's my opinion on that one. I just thought that was really bizarre. And, not so much bizarre that she would do that, but he's not questioning why she would do that. He just thinks, and I'm going to talk a lot about, men who are married to women, and I call them dolts, that don't seem to recognize what they do. And sometimes families are this way too, don't recognize that they have a personality disorder. And so they accept a lot of very, very dangerous behaviors. And like the Sherry Papini case, Keith Papini, I mean, she had a long history before she went missing and was kidnapped. And now he says, I was that fool of a husband. Well, yeah, you were, but I'm still looking to see whether the divorce ever went through, because it's been 1 year now. He filed for divorce, I think last year this time, and I don't see any proof yet that he actually got divorced from her. So I'm wondering, are you still adult, Keith, or did you after a while she wheedled her way back in and made you feel like, oh yeah, blah blah blah? I'm curious. What do you think, guys? Do you think Keith is going to absolutely divorce Sherry Papini, or do you think maybe he's starting to have second thoughts and she's going to end up still being in the family? I'm really curious. So, wait a minute. I have a friend who called his son Kermit. Well, if you like frogs, it's not so bad. I mean, Kermit is a real name. And there's always a question whether people are going to tease your kids over any name that you give them. But when you get to the point of this kind of thing, then you have to question the person, because it's not like I love the name and other people think it's funny or old fashioned or this or that. But when you name your kid something that is out really clearly going to be something he's going to suffer from, then one has to look at your motive for doing this. And I think it's kind of I'd say, guy, you got a problem with a wife then. So yeah, very interesting. And let me talk about, I'm gonna fix something here. Hold on a second. For some reason, I always try to get see the elephant. I should move the elephant trunk, because you see that's my elephant up there. And well, for some reason he always ends up in the picture, and I try to get him out of the picture. But I should just move the elephant head, but I like the elephant head. Hold on. Okay. Anyway, but I do that, it gets blurry, so then it's not bad. But then sometimes I do this and I got cut off at the forehead. So you see, I have these fun things that I mess around with, especially during hangouts when I'm not that obsessed. Anyway, so I want to talk about this guy too. And so I'm going to start this show with actually Dear Abby, and then I'm going to go to the real serious stuff. This fellow. So this fellow, he had a question. Let me find the question he has. Okay, so hold on a second. Hold on, I got to find him. I got a lot of things open here, so it always takes me a wee bit to find the article that I want to read from, if I even put it there somewhere. Where is it? Okay, here we go. So this is this dude, and his question is this, coming from the famous Daily Fail, which is now not loading. Load, Daily Fail. Load. I can tell the story without it, but I'm just going to read from it. It's doing that. All right. doesn't want to cooperate. So anyway, I'm going to tell you the basic story here because it's not showing it. All right. So this guy here, he went on a date, you see, with a woman, or so he thought. And so he had a really good time. And I think maybe they went out one more time. They still had a good time. And it was like a few dates in that he was told by the woman that, oh, by the way, I'm trans. And he's like, oh, okay, you're trans. All right. I'm not going to make this a political discussion because that's not what this is about. So what this is about is honesty. And the reason it is important for anyone to be honest very early on in dating life. So now he likened this person and now, oh, you're trans. All right. Now there are people out here today that say it doesn't matter if the person's trans. You should just, if you like them, you should like them as a human being and be fine with whatever comes with a package, which might be a package, you know. So, and to me, that's fraud. And it's not just fraud for a person who's trans. It's a fraud for any kind of person who's going into a relationship who is not upfront about who they are and what luggage they come with. Once upon a time when we, the old days, somebody courted you, you actually knew the family they came from, you knew a lot about them. But now we meet people many times that we don't know their family, we don't know their history, and we're depending on them, which is tricky, to tell us the truth about who they are. And it can be all kinds of things. It could be age. It could be fertility issues. For example, let's say a man wants to marry a woman. He really wants to have children by her. And I'm not saying whether this is right or wrong, because, for example, I have an adopted child, and I have two bio kids and one adopted child. And he's just as much my child as the other two. So you could say, oh, well, it doesn't matter whether the woman's fertile or not. He can just go and adopt, right? Well, yes, but still, people have desires. They have things that they would like in life. So if he wants to have a family, theoretically, of bio kids, he should be able to know if the woman cannot do that, or the person who's not a female, biologic, can do that. And you don't want to get into a whole long relationship and you fall for this person. And then, oh, by the way, or even I don't want kids. May not be that they can't have children. They may just not want them. So if one person wants a bunch of kids, the other person doesn't want any at all, it's not fair to go into a real relationship, start falling for that person, loving them, caring for them. And all of a sudden, oh, by the way, I don't think that's right. I think before one gets into any kind of relationship, the basics should be available right away. I'm not talking about some hookup, which I don't approve of, but I'm talking about somebody who's starting to, hey, this might be a person I would like to be with for a period of time in my life, especially when you're younger. What do you want? Do you want to have a family? Do we have similar religious issues? Because that's huge. Are we happy with our cultures? Are we from the same culture or are we from different cultures? How would that work? Do we want a two-parent family where both parents work and the kids are going to be in daycare? Or is there an expectation that one of us is going to stay home and take care of that child? What about where you want to live? I always told my ex-husband, which is not why we became an ex-husband, if you tell me one day we're going to pick up and move to Saudi Arabia or Alaska, there's a divorce right there on the table. I'm done. I can't live in either place. Not going there. Because those are places I know I'll be miserable in. And yes, maybe you have a great job offer, but how long am I going to have to stay there and be freaking miserable so you can do that? So these are important things. Where do we live? What kind of lifestyle do we want to have? The things that are very, very important. I have a friend, and she and her husband are both from India. She is a vegetarian, religiously vegetarian Hindu. He also is Hindu, but he's not a vegetarian. He loves meat. She accepted when she married him that she would have to cook meat for him. All right. And she has done that. And they're now in their 60s. She has done that. She's never touched one bite of it. She makes veg over here. She makes meat over there. And she has separate pots and everything. And she never tastes the food when she cooks it for him. Apparently, she's a fabulous cook anyway. So somehow she just knows how to make it taste good for him. Now, she could say, I don't want meat in my kitchen at all. That's offensive to me. But they made a deal when they got married that this is the way it would be. And because they both accepted it, their marriage is very successful, very happy people. And so I think whatever you're willing to, whatever you can honestly accept and go forward with your relationship is fabulous. So I don't care whether you're gay, you're trans, you're straight, what race you are, what culture you are, and all that kind of stuff, what religion. But two people who are going to make a life together better be sure that they're not lying to each other and not sucking each other in, basically catfishing. And even if you're in person, you're still catfishing. You know what I mean? Because, you can do it online and fake yourself, fake a whole bunch of stuff. But you can also do it in person by telling people something that isn't true, or by leaving a whole bunch of information out so that therefore you get involved with this person. And then you wake up one day and you find out they have a whole bunch of stuff they didn't tell you about. And that includes, by the way, family. I want to point that out because a lot of people ignore family. When you get married, you marry their family as well. So if they have criminals in their family, violent people in their family, alcoholics in their family, all these kind of things, you should know about it. And if you yourself have a past, let's say you have a past of drug addiction and alcohol issues or criminal background, that person you're dating has a right to know right up front that this is who you are. And maybe they're willing to accept it and say, hey, how long has it been? How are you doing now? And they're willing to accept it. But to not tell them. And then one day, a year later, they think everything's going great and they like you and they just got married to you and you're in the bathroom doing meth, It's not okay. So I believe in honesty in relationships, and it should start right in the beginning. Don't sell somebody a false bill of sale. Sell them something they don't think they're getting. Make sure they know what they're getting, and then they can decide whether they want to continue. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm 67, and if I met this fellow, and he right up front said he wanted a girlfriend straight up. He said, I don't want any more friends. I want a girlfriend. I want somebody who's going to be there all the time with me. And I said, I can understand that. Will you give it 2 or 3 weeks to see if I even like you? And he said yes, but after 2 or 3 weeks, I decided I did not want to be his girlfriend. But at least he was up front. I'll give him credit on that. So he was saying, I don't want to drag this out. I don't want to wait a long time. I just want a woman in my life. I want to move her into my house. And, I hope he found somebody. It ain't going to be me. But at least he said it. And I like that because now I know, right up front, I don't want to waste my time and he doesn't want to waste his time. And that's a good thing. So, yeah, that's very true. It's fair to know if I'm letting you in my house. And this, especially if you have children, and this is where a lot of people make that huge error. Because first of all, I'm very cautious about letting anybody into the life with small children. In my opinion, a lot of people get, who end up divorced and they have children who are like 8 and 6 might be better off not having anybody in their house until those kids are grown. I know it's a harsh way to look at things, but so much happens. And those children, while you're sitting there going, oh, I want this relationship. I want this person in my house. I want to wake up with him in the morning. I want to have sex. Your children have to wake up every day with that same person too. And you're forcing that relationship on them just because you want it. So I'm always saying, be really cautious when, especially a divorced situation like that. Take it slow. Keep the household separate as long as you can, until everybody's on board, until the kids even say, I like that person. I like that woman. I like that man. And wouldn't it be great if we were all together? If they can't say that, have a visiting relationship. Kayla says, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble. I'm over clicking all of a sudden. I think it's best to lie from the get-go so I can find out later What a bitch you are. Well, then, that's one way to look at it. Sucker, sucker. Oh, my goodness. Oh, Lord. And it's funny because there's this interesting concept that one of the things about a woman that's attractive is mystery. She don't really know what she's about. And if you're too forward, then they're not that interested because they like the mystery and the femme fatale thing and going, well, that may be very attractive, but let me tell you, well, can that screw your life up? Because that's where you start making your mistakes. And somebody did ask me about this. So doing this particular case today, because it's in court right now. And I think it fits this whole issue. Let me find it here. And here we go. Okay. There they are. Stauch? Is that how you pronounce the name? I'm not watching the trial. I don't watch trials because I get bored. But this is Leticia. I think her name is Leticia. I mean, I'm kind of getting killed on pronunciation here. Leticia Stauch and Al Stauch. And Anyway, that's what I'm going to call them. And let me find one of the things I thought was the most interesting about this. And this little boy, the woman here, who was the stepmother of the child. Is this the child? Hold on a second. Yeah, there he is. This little boy, she killed him. And they're now in court. And the defense has like the worst defense I have ever heard. So it's pretty appalling. But let me find a few things I thought was super interesting about this particular case. All right. Let's see if I can find let me start out with the defense. Okay, so the defense admits, which I thought was fascinating in this case, admits that Leticia, is that right? Somebody tell me if it's Leticia. I'll just say yes if I'm right. Defense admits, her own lawyer admits she killed her stepson, but had no idea what she was doing. Oh my God, no idea. This is what basically happened. I remember this case from a long time ago. I knew she was a lying dog when the kid went missing, but the claim was that he just left and she didn't know what happened to him. And then eventually they saw her leave with him and then he didn't come back with her. So the whole story just stunk. And so they eventually found his body and he'd been, what did he do? First of all, he's 11 years old. So let me give you the basics on it. Gannon Stauch was first reported missing from his home in 2020, January 27th of 2020. His stepmother was arrested in March of 2020 for his death. Later that month, they found his body. They knew she did it because she lied about leaving with him, and that he, went off on his own. No, and then, you left with him, you're the last person to see him, you're the last person we saw with him, and he doesn't come back with you. You really screwed that up. But anyway, his body was found stuffed in a suitcase under a bridge in Florida. According to the autopsy, he had been shot, stabbed, and he had a skull fracture. But mind you, she had no idea what she was doing. All right, that's a lot of things to not know what you're doing. A whole lot of things. Okay, so now let me go on with what he said. The defense guy is trying to prove that she's insane. All right, that she didn't know the difference between right and wrong. So he said the defense lawyer says, it was an awful, awful thing that happened to Gannon. It wasn't an awful thing. It was a brutal murder. He's trying to tone down. He said, it's an awful thing. Okay. What happened to that boy in 2020 is beyond description. Yeah, no, I can describe it really well. It's called a premeditated homicide. That's what it's called. He went on to say that the media had painted Stauch as guilty and goes against the basic rights of innocent until proven guilty. Sure. No, the public, there's a legal side and there's what we all know side. So pretty much people did think she was guilty because it was pretty obvious. And then there's a legal side that she's not guilty in a court of law until she's proven by the prosecution to be guilty and the jury makes their verdict. All right. He acknowledged, the defense attorney, that Stauch is a sick person. Sick person. Now, this is where the women thing is. So many times, if God did this, it would be the dude's a psychopath. Woman, she's a sick person. And he said the motive is the key. He claimed Stauch was dealing with, there are quotes here, so I'm putting quotes, trauma and abuse she allegedly endured in her childhood, and that she had no motive at all. She just broke. So now, okay, this is a grown woman, all right? And so suddenly, because somewhere back in her childhood, I'm thinking that's from Sound of Music. Somewhere in my youth and childhood, I must have done something. No, somebody did something bad to me. And therefore, I waited 20 or 30 years and then killed off my stepson. No. Stepson apparently she didn't like him. This is what happens. This is why I say be very careful about blended families. Can they work? Yes. Oftentimes, do they work? No. And when you don't have healthy human beings, and when I say healthy, I don't mean insane. I mean psychopaths, Munchausen's people, violent people, all that kind of stuff. A stepchild is something that can be extremely, extremely annoying to the person who has no feelings for it. And they're often, at times, they're the ones, especially in this case, female, taking care of him a lot. So apparently, she wasn't too into this boy. He annoyed her. So it wasn't something from her childhood. It was something from the fact he was a child and what was in her hood. You know what I mean? And she didn't want him there. So she got rid of him. That's what she did. Yes. Okay. So here the defense attorney goes on. That person she was attacking wasn't Gannon. She was killing the demons from her life, from the dark depths of her childhood. Oh, God. Oh, Lord. I mean, this is so bad. This is so bad. So that's basically saying, I don't know, that he was, she was psychotic and saw like all the evils of her childhood flying out of his body, or she needed to remove them from in front of her. I don't know. A whole pile of nonsense. But here's where it gets interesting. All right. So the question comes down to, first of all, the biological mother of Gannon allowed her son to go stay with his dad and the stepmommy. Now, I don't know why. I haven't seen that information. It might be out there. I don't know if it's a court thing because he was a boy and he could go with his dad. And sometimes courts feel that if the kid goes with dad, that if he gets a stepmother, she'll be much safer than if he stays with the mother and she gets a boyfriend and there's a stepfather. To a great extent, that's true. That generally speaking, since violence is more likely from a male than a female in these situations, statistically, yes, but it isn't always true. So, but a lot of times I go, okay, he'll get a wife or whatever, and she won't be. She'll mother him or smother him, one of those two. But the judge is going to go with. It's going to work out. And I don't know, even I don't know about his bio mom, whether she liked her, she thought she was okay, or whether she just, maybe she'd be married, maybe her husband wasn't too cool on the kid. And I honestly don't know anything about Gannon. Some kids are easy to get along with. Some kids are not. And I don't know anything about him. And I'm not blaming him. It's not blaming the victim. It's just showing that when you have a difficult child, you need history and love for that child in order to be able to withstand helping him with the issues. Because if you don't have that and the child's difficult, you can just see that child as an enemy if you have problems. If you have problems, even if you don't have problems, it can feel that way. I know people who've been good people and they've taken in stepkids and it has been hell. It has been hell. They've tried everything, but the stepkid's like, you're not my mom, or whatever, or you're not my dad. And they act out. And then sometimes they talk to the bio parent and the bio parent pushes them to act out. It gets really to be a big fat mess sometimes. We wish it wasn't that way, but that's really the way things are in life. Not so easy. So I don't know the whole situation. I don't know if Gannon was an easygoing kid or he was difficult. I don't know why he was there, who made the choices. I haven't gone into, doing, 100 hours worth of research. But here's what I did find, all right, about Leticia. All right, let me find her. Okay, this is coming from heavy.com, which of course is a fine channel. Nothing really on the internet is all that fine. But this I found interesting. Because when you're going to bring somebody into your child's life, you want to make sure you bring somebody in who is psychologically healthy, a good human being, and not a psychopath. Now, listen, according to Leticia's now deleted Facebook page, where she goes by the name of Stauch. Is it Stauch? Anyway, she put on her page that she worked as a curriculum developer at School District 49 in Pikes Peak region of Colorado. But the school district told the Colorado Springs Gazette she never actually worked there, despite listing it on Facebook and in her profile, in her LinkedIn profile. Okay, so now we know something. She's a liar, a fabricator, and a manipulator. That right there, just boom. That's something. I mean, there's a difference. Let me point out again the difference between spin and lying. Let's say you work for, let's say you say, I was in the Peace Corps. I joined the Peace Corps in 1990. And it may be true, but 4 months into the Peace Corps, you hated every living moment of it, so you left. It's not totally a lie. It's not totally, it's kind of spin. You told the truth. You just didn't get into explaining much more. Then you have, I did 3 years in the Peace Corps, and you never actually joined. That's complete fat lie. So when you get to the complete fat lie, you have to ask why a person's doing that. The other one, you can sort of go, they're trying to pad their resume and try not to admit to, like, they didn't work for 2 years. There could be reasons. Maybe they were sick and couldn't work those 2 years, or maybe they joined the Peace Corps wanting to enjoy it, and they just hated the country they were in. They came back and things fell apart, and they just didn't. They kind of skipped things. I can see that in people's resumes. I'm like, yeah, that's probably not true. That's probably not true, or that's probably not the whole truth. I see that. But then there's complete outright lying, and this is what she's doing. So whatever she posted is not correct, said a school spokesperson. And we don't know why that is, because she's a liar. That's why that is. All right. The newspaper reports. Now, here's another really interesting thing. I want you to pay attention to reports, or she states, because if you don't see the paperwork, you don't know if it's true. The newspaper reports that Stauch did get her license to teach elementary school and special education and secondary studies in Colorado in March 2019. They report that. I would like to know where they got their information from. That may be true, but I still want to know where they got their information from. Okay, then it says, she previously worked as an education specialist and teacher and an at-risk youth coordinator in South Carolina. She completed her doctorate at Liberty University in 2019 in education. Her doctorate. So is she Dr. Stauch? According to her LinkedIn profile. You see according to, she's already lied. She's already lied about working in the school system. You think this is true that she had a doctorate? According to her LinkedIn profile. She also worked for the South Carolina State Department of Social Services as a human services specialist from 2008 to 2010 in Myrtle Beach, according to her LinkedIn profile. She previously earned her master's degree in curriculum and instruction from Capella University, she said on LinkedIn, after graduating with a political science degree from the University of North Carolina. You see how many? She said. All right. So here is the problem. I'm going to say she's a pathologist. It sounds to me like a psychopath. Well, let me put it this way. She brutally murdered this little boy. So she is a psychopath. I don't need, all these people that say, but Pat, you're not a psychologist. You don't have a degree to analyze her. She murdered a little boy in cold blood. She is a psychopath. If you don't know that as a psychologist or psychiatrist, you probably just said on LinkedIn that you got those degrees because you don't know anything. She's a psychopath. And in fact, now we see that she also lies and manipulates. So I'm guessing there's more proof she's a psychopath. Now she got herself into this man's life. Did he not know that she was a liar and a fraud? Did he not see any of these things in her behavior? How long did he spend with her? Because a lot of people, there's just no way. I point this out. There's no way that you can be with somebody for day upon day upon day, 24 hours a day, and they can hide their psychopathy. They can't do it. They can do it for a job interview. They can do it for a date. They can't do it in the long run because they are who they are. So if they are liars, they'll lie. Oftentimes pathologically lie because that's what they do. So if you're around them and they've lied to you, they manipulated you, you should have been out that door because you have children. Run like hell. You don't need that person in your life. You don't. But people don't like to be alone. So they're like, okay, well, she's just this, she's just that. Is he adult? I don't know. But when you have children, you don't have room to be adult, male or female. You don't. And this is what I see happened in this case. Let me check your comments on before I go on to some other interesting cases. Let's see. I'm having click problems today. Click. What? Hold on. Wow, there's something. Little things happening. Sarah says, narcissism, psychopath, borderline, triple combo. And here's where, I argue with a lot of people over this. Those are labels. And they're not absolutes. And a lot of times, the way that these different designations are made on, well, if they have these certain things, then they're this. If they have these certain things, then they're that. But they only need to have like 6 out of 10. But they actually have 6 over here and 4 over there. So we'll call them, oh, Lord, this is the problem. And what it does is dilute what we should be looking at. Because in my opinion, I believe narcissism is just a continuum. You're healthy, you're more narcissistic, you're very narcissistic. When you get to be very, very super, super narcissistic, you're up to psychopath then. Because once you stop caring about anybody else at all, you're way over there. And it's just, again, it's labeling, but we need to get to the label. If you're going to label people, figure out what that label is that's going to keep people from getting hurt. And a lot of times we try to play things down rather than be very frank. And that's something that we've had. Yeah, walking DSM. Yeah, and they change, and they change. Borderline is on a continuum too, because again, what is it? And that's the problem. I mean, I've called people borderline personality disorder. I've said narcissism. I've said psychopathy. Those are my 3 basics. But even then, all I can say is if you're with somebody who has any of those, probably you're going to have a rough time. CJ, my husband's sister's brother-in-law married a woman that told my sister-in-law she had a master's degree but lost it. Well, that things happen. Oh my God, that's funny. She's not a PhD. Well, apparently not. And some other people recently have been in the news, like Thea Johansson. She ain't a PhD either. Another person who lies continually on her different pages. And if you go from like Instagram to her book to this to that, they never match because you can't keep track of the lies. It's quite amusing. Oh, yeah. Oh, this one. Oh, good for you. Sarah says, then she called into the job that she never had to say she wasn't coming into work because her stepdad was hit by a car. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, and one of the funny things that they do is make up these wild stories as their excuses. It's like instead, I remember this one story that one guy as a psychopath told his boss. He's on the way to work, and clearly he probably just got up late, just didn't get up in time, went to work. Now, most people, well, at least if they're going to lie, you're going to use something relatively like, oh, there was traffic. I couldn't find my car keys. Because you don't want to admit you just didn't get up in time. I couldn't find my car keys. I got a last minute phone call I had to take care of. There was traffic on the way. But you know what this guy said? That there was a pregnant woman drowning on the side of the road in a lake, and he had to pull over and run and save her life. Yes. Wow. And then the boss was like, really? And then, of course, it never shows up in the newspaper, Mr. Hero. So they really come up with some crazy crap. I have been told this by many people. I think Pat should be banned from saying psycho. Yes, I've been told I say that quite often. But what am I talking about? Murderers. I mean, so I say it's more reasonable that I should say psychopath way more than most other human beings. So, but hopefully not about you. So, let's see. I think you'd say resentment there. She had a lot of resentment toward the biological mother. We don't know. Again, if you're a psychopath, we can never really know a whole lot of anything. That's whatever she said. We're never sure that what they said is true. And and when you get a defense lawyer involved, and of course in this particular case, he's got some really outrageous stuff. But defense lawyers will make up a story for you, and then do this one, and this will work. So, and will it or will it not? But they might come up with it for you, and then since the lawyer's saying this is what is happening, and then you agree to it, then people say, oh, well, that must be true. It's not necessarily true, because defense lawyers, unfortunately, I personally think if they lie and create a story for you, they should be disbarred. So Jose Baez should have been kicked to the curb a long time ago, because he is the king of creating stories and lies for his clients, which has nothing to do with justice or providing a defense. I think that's just in violation of all ethics, and he should have been booted away. But yeah, that's my opinion on that. Now I'm going to go to another story, and this is another one where we have somebody who people are saying didn't do this on purpose. Okay, and one has to really look into the details to try to understand whether it was on purpose or not. But before I go to that story, because it's about a car, it's about people who got killed in a vehicular accident. Not really an accident, but I want to just tell you the story on the way there, because this just happened to me. My son and I, who decided to go get some Indian food at this place I really like, and it was a little bit of a drive. So we pull out of our house and we're driving down the road, and within I'd say 2 miles down the road, we see this everything, the police flashing lights everywhere, police cars everywhere, and we look over and everything stopped. We see a huge Amazon trailer, tractor trailer, and we see all these cars just forever going down there. So we're like, okay, we can't take this route back. Once we pick up the food, we're going to find a back road to get back. We look over and we see a lump on the side of the road covered in some kind of a tarp, and so we immediately knew what that meant. And then in the middle of the road there were two tennis shoes, and so we were like fairly horrified. And when you see these things in person, it's so different than when I work as a profiler and I look at pictures and I deal with cases. But when you see it in your neighborhood right down the road, it's so sad. And so we drove, continued on. And we started this conversation. So he said, I wonder what happened, because I don't see a car crash. And I said, yeah, I didn't see a car crash either. So the next thought he had was, well, I wonder if it's one of those guys who's walking on the side of the road or tried to cross the road and got nailed, which seems pretty reasonable, right? Because on that particular road, we have a lot of people who, but this was during the daytime, so it wasn't like at nighttime. A lot of times you see people dressed all in black just walking down the side of the road, and I'm always afraid I'm going to hit them. They're on bicycles and dressed in black. I'm like, why do you do this? Sometimes they're drunk, sometimes they're using drugs, they're homeless, whatever. And we've had a lot of deaths on this one road, but this was daytime. And I'm like, what, wonder what happened. So later, I kept trying to figure out what had happened, going Googling. It took a long time for me to find out that it was a motorcycle accident. And the rider of the motorcycle was one who was dead, and instantly into my mind. So this is how our minds work sometimes, which is why sometimes we're not correct unless we really spend extra time on it. I immediately thought of crotch rocket. We have, the young guy, teenager, on a crotch rocket. You're on your motorcycle and you're always way down here and you're hauling ass at 100 miles an hour. And you lose control and you die. I always teach my granddaughter about that. She even knows the word now. She goes, I wonder if that's a crotch rocket, isn't it, Grandma? She's 8. She's now 9. Oh, she's 9 now. But I'm trying to show her that that's an unsafe way to use a motorcycle. So my thought was crotch rocket teen. And then I saw in the description, 49-year-old man. I was surprised on a Suzuki. I was like, 49? That's unusual. And a man from the area that it was in. And it turned out that, see the red dot up there, that's where he lived. And the last road down toward the bottom that connects with 301, the one going out to the right, that's where the accident occurred. And apparently that Amazon truck had tried to do a U-turn there from like this. Now, the question is, there was a light there. The question is, did the guy, I don't know what happens. They're still doing an investigation, which is why you have a thing called an investigation to find out how this could happen. The motorcycle rider, he slammed into the passenger side of the Amazon truck he was doing the U-turn and he came down and rammed into the passenger side. Why? Was it because he was going too fast and he had a green light and didn't realize that? I mean, it's a huge tractor trailer. I don't know how he hit it. Did the tractor trailer pull out when he shouldn't have pulled out? I don't know. And so I'm still waiting to hear this. But usually when you see this thing, you think of somebody who's careless. This man had just pulled out of his house. He hit that trailer within 1 minute of being on the road. And I looked him up and I found him on Facebook. And I checked to see whether, and right away this popped up. There he is on the Suzuki. And like one of his cousins, something's like, hey, you go, bro. And it's like, I'm thinking, yeah, he did. But what happened? And I'm looking at the rest of it. This is the gentleman with his wife. And this is him with his mom. Now, that's no teen on a crotch rocket. That's a man who's raised kids. I saw the pictures of his kids, all really nice children. You know what I mean? Just nicely dressed. You can tell he's from a great family. He's actually a Christian, goes to a local church. You see, he dresses in suits and stuff. I mean, the guy's got a good job. He's got a loving wife. Family adores him. And he pulls out of his house and in 1 minute slams into an Amazon truck. I don't know. I don't know what happened. I'm still waiting to hear how this happened, because he's obviously a very responsible person. How did it happen? Was the Amazon truck driver at fault, or did he just have a moment where he wasn't paying attention and the truck took too long to do this U-turn and he had the green light and he just, I don't know. It's so freaking sad. And, sometimes when you're looking at cases, you can start out with, oh my God, this is probably what happened. But it does take a while. And that's why there's a thing called an investigation. So I point this out so that people can understand that what you see, you don't always know everything. And sometimes it takes little bits by little bits before you start seeing, oh, this is what happened. And this was super sad. So it's my neighborhood. So, one of those things just really gets to you. But then we'll talk about this woman. All right, Lord. This woman came from Jamaica, like my ex and all my relatives, and she's a nurse. She's a nurse. And I'm going to read you first the basics of this case. And then I want to, this is the accident scene. And there's a video, I'll try to link it below. There's a video of this. She is a traveling nurse doing very well in life. Let me see if I can find the basics on her before I read the interesting article about it, which I thought, wow, there's where the family really kicks in with some stuff that you got to wonder about. Hold on a sec. Okay, that must be okay. I think okay. Here we are. All right, so she's an ICU nurse in LA. She held jobs in 6 hospitals in 2 years, and they started making this like she had issues. So why was she working as a nurse? I don't know that this has anything to do with nursing, that they would have seen any of this. However, on this particular day, she's 37 years old. This is her, 37 years old. She's in custody in California on 6 murder charges for killing a pregnant woman. She was, I think she was about, let me find the picture of her. Did that not come over? Yeah, no, that's not her. Sorry, that's a killer. Wrong person. Where's the picture of? I just think, didn't think it came. Is this it? No, this is one of the people that got killed. This was the dad of this little boy, and then the woman got. Then there was a woman killed. She was pregnant. One place says 5 people. One place says 6. I'm a little confused, but at any rate, she killed a bunch of people, and a pregnant woman and her baby, and then the little boy you just saw. All right, what happened in this incident? Happened on August 4th. She inexplicably drove her Mercedes straight into traffic. Look at the picture again, and the video is horrific because she blows through the intersection. They said 90 miles an hour. Some places say 120 miles an hour because journalists don't seem to be journalists. So anyway, but she blew through this intersection, obviously a place where nobody goes 90 to 120 miles an hour. She drove straight into traffic, slicing one of the victim's car in half, sending the baby in his car seat flying into the air at terrifying speed. Her motives remain unclear, but her attorney told a judge yesterday she has a profound history of mental health problems that should have stopped her from getting behind a car. Supposedly there's been like a theory, they said like 16 accidents or something. That's questionable. Some of them were somebody else's fault. Some might have been fender benders. But then again, I haven't had a single accident in my adult life. So what's she doing? So anyway, she blew through the intersection. And do you remember the guy that ran over all the people in the parade? And he clearly, purposely ran all over the people in the parade. This is called mass murder. And I don't usually talk about individuals, and because I don't want to give them, that's why I won't do television anymore where I talk about specific mass murderers. This woman's a mass murderer. She knew when she blew through that intersection at that rate of speed, she was going to kill people. She's a mass murderer, just as she'd gone into a school with a gun. No difference. If she had just wanted to kill herself, there's a lot of roads you can kill yourself on with trees. Run into a tree. People do it all the time. Run into a tree, run into a brick wall, run off a cliff. But when you aim your vehicle at other human beings, not knowing even who's in those cars, with whole families of children, you're a mass murderer. That's what she is. Now, let's look what the family says. Family. All right. Hold on 1 second. I just had it and I've lost it. Okay, hold on. Okay. This is from Essence magazine. Her family went to Essence. After a high-profile car crash, Nicole Linton's family is searching for the truth in tragedy. in tragedy. Again, this is another downplaying thing. In mass murder, it's not a tragedy. It's a mass murder. You want the truth? Okay, I'm sorry to tell you this. She's a mass murderer. That's what she is. Then it goes on. Stigmatized mental health. Sensational media and unforgiving legal system have complicated a family's efforts to advocate for their loved ones. They want to advocate for her. She's a mass murderer. They want her to be understood. They want her to get help. And there's 6 people who are dead, including children. So August 4th, 2022, Los Angeles was irrevocably changed when 37-year-old Nicole Linton, a traveling nurse, was recorded driving, this one says 130 miles per hour, crashing into passing traffic at a busy intersection in a fiery wreck. She survived, of course, with not even hardly any injuries. It's phenomenal. Yeah, minor injuries, but this one says 5 others died, including 23-year-old Ashley Ryan, Ryan's boyfriend, Reynold Lester, and her 11-month-old child, Alonzo Quintero. And Ryan was 8.5 months pregnant at the time. However, it says here, the 3 months since have been a roller coaster of grief, pain, and confusion, not only for the Angelino families that have lost their loved ones, but for the Linton family, a tightly knit network of Jamaican sisters who immigrated to America and working to make sure the sisters treated as fairly as possible by the media and the courts. So what they're saying, according to her family, Nicole's first two incidents required short-term inpatient psychiatric care, but she never presented symptoms of being suicidal. She wasn't suicidal. She was homicidal, first of all. Nicole was either in a manic state, they say, or in the midst of frontal lobe seizure during this horrific tragedy. All right. So they do a lot of defending. All right. And so they're basically trying to say that she had issues. It says here, according to Nicole's sisters, prior to the fateful day, she had been focused on reducing her stress, focusing on fitness and seeing a therapist. But when she had relocated for work, she had yet to find a new one with whom she had the same rapport. And here's the great line that I like. All right. It says here, there's a difference. Oh, well, I'm going to say it the opposite way. There's a difference between criminality and mental illness. Yeah, there is. In my opinion, there's mental illness, but mental illness doesn't necessarily cause criminality. And I think that's where this excuse comes in from the defense and from the families. It's the person had a mental illness, therefore they committed these horrific acts. Most people with mental illness do not commit horrific acts. They don't. They have issues, they struggle, they're depressed, and also, and some do commit suicide, but they don't go and kill their whole families. So a man who's distressed and stabs his whole family to death, people don't seem to defend him. But when it's a woman, again, highly defended, as if women can't do something with their stress besides commit mass murder. I don't understand this concept. That's psychopathy. To know that you're going to kill people is psychopathy. Okay. So again, she could have been depressed. There's a lot of streets to drive down. And unless truly, well, okay, let's go with the seizure thing, or whatever happened. For her to go that speed, we're not saying she just went through the red light. Her foot went down and she went through it. We're talking, she had to maintain an extremely high speed, the same way the guy did that ran over the parade people. It was on purpose. The desire was to commit this horrific crime. And for some reason, now we're supposed to all say that's not what was happening there. So she says, I don't think the legal system is really set up to find the truth. Well, the truth in this is fairly obvious. The problem is you want to pretend your loved one didn't commit a mass murder. That's the problem. And yet and even if you have a mental health issue, I'm sorry, this is where I lean away from a lot of people on certain things. If you have a mental health issue, you have to make determinations not to do certain things. If it's dangerous for you to get behind the wheel of a car, you don't. There's Uber. There's buses. There's other ways to deal with things. If you have certain issues of you're short-tempered, what you don't have in the house is weapons that you can use when you're short-tempered. There are moments when you are lucid that you can make determinations. And if you're not going to make this determination, if you decide you're just not going, you're going to ignore your issues. Well, then you're making choices. And if you're a human, an adult human being, and you're making choices, then you're responsible for your choices. Her choice, accident after accident after accident, whatever reasons those accidents were, there's an awful lot of them. She still gets behind the wheel of a car. She makes good money as a traveling ICU nurse. You can take an Uber. You can. And there's options. But she made her choices. And her choices ended up being she decided to kill people that day. But because she's a woman, we're going to say she can't help it. She's got some kind of, bipolar thing, and she's, couldn't control herself and all of that. And is that true? And, and I always wonder about the family who always says the person's really nice. What we see again, we see that a lot of people who suffer from Munchausen syndrome, which is just a behavior of a psychopath, which means you kill people who don't oftentimes. So we have a lot of nurses who have the Munchausen thing, or a lot of Munchausen people are nurses. It's not the other way around. Some people who have Munchausen syndrome are nurses. And I think it's because they can take care of people, and then they can take care of people. And so they choose that profession rather than something else. And so we have quite a few incidences of nurses who end up murdering their patients, and mothers who murder their little children. And a lot of those people are nurses too. And again, it's not the nursing profession that does it. It's the fact they choose this profession. She's a nurse as well. So what is it? Is it because of the control and power they get in that profession? And then when they doesn't give them enough power and control, they go one further. I don't know. But what I can tell you is that nobody kills 6 people and because you had a bad day. That's not suicide. That's mass murder. And I just wish we'd stop coddling that. I understand the family doesn't want to deal with it. I get that. It's one of your own. But hey, sometimes we have to look at our own family and go and realize things. So let me see what you have to say. Let's see. Oops, I've got lots of comments here. Okay. Hold on a second. Oh, that's a good question. Oh, Sarah, was she drunk? No, she was not. No drugs, no drinking, no drugs, no alcohol. So, Michaela, you're terrible. If you commit mass murder and only get 6, I'm saying you're unmotivated. Well, interestingly enough, we do sometimes look at mass murderers and decide that they're not real mass murderers unless they have a higher body count. And also, we have a tendency, especially in the United States, to think of mass murderers as only people with guns. And on that note, I want to point out a couple of other mass murderers. This one just happened in, hold on a second, I'm going to find it, the Brazil one. Hold on. Where'd it go? Brazil? Really? Well, that's interesting. Well, that one is just done vanished. Here we go again. Oh, no, here we go. Okay. It's hard to see. These things are small. Man with axe kills 4 in creche in southern Brazil. A man armed with a small axe climbed. What did he do? Okay. Climbed over a wall in a creche in southern Brazil and killed 4 children on Wednesday, injured 5 others in the attack. The 25-year-old man turned himself into the police after the rampage. And what do they say about this? The daycare center, right? The attacker had a history of violence and drugs and had stabbed his stepfather in 2021. But, he's still out there. And the attack came nearly after a 13-year-old student stabbed a teacher to death and wounded 5 others in Sao Paulo. Okay, so that essentially is another mass murder, except he just only got one in the body count. And one of the interesting things I noted that was that, if I didn't lose my thing here, is, where'd it go? Is in China. China has had a long history of mass murders committed with knives. So like somebody jumps out of a train and just stabs the living crap out of like 20, 30 people. Oh, here we go. Found it. And maybe I don't guess their access to guns is limited, right? But it says here, why does China have so many school stabbings? Knife or axe attacks on children are distressingly common in China. Americans have gotten uncomfortably familiar with the periodic tragedy of mass shooting, but in China, it's the stabbing spree. Last Friday, a 39-year-old knife-wielding woman burst into a playground of a kindergartner in Chongqing, okay, Southwest China, managing to slash 14 children as they were finishing their morning exercises before she was wrestled to the ground by shocked onlookers. The following day, that's when we had an attack here. Somebody shot up a synagogue, killing 11. All right, but let's look at what else we have here in China. Let's see. There was a whole bunch of them here that were listed. Okay, here we go. A 54-year-old man drove his SUV into a crowd in Hunan, got out, and started stabbing. So he had a car and a knife, started stabbing victims indiscriminately. 9 dead, 46 injured. Or how about in April, it says here, a disgruntled ex-student killed 5 children and injured 12 others in a school stabbing in Shaanxi with a kitchen knife. So here's another one. Guy in Nanping. 8 children were murdered in a school. Another one, a guy stabbed 28 children, school children. 4 more attacks occurred over the following months, leaving 27 dead and 80 injured, seemingly confirming that media reports would spur a wave of copycats. Remember I said the media, in my opinion, because they keep going to every single detail, it inspires the next person who wants to commit mass murder. I feel that's why I don't talk about mass murders in the United States, not individual ones on national television. That's why I don't do it. But here you see a whole bunch of knife attacks, axe attacks, and then here they got a little bomb here going. And there's a set fire to a school bus, which killed 13. It isn't just about guns. It's about whatever you've got available. And we have an issue with very angry, psychopathic human beings who pick on, and you say, why are all these schools getting attacked? It's not because I hate children. It's because they're goldfish in a goldfish bowl. That's why. Teachers aren't armed. Once you get into school, you've got nice little clusters, and they got too many kids in a classroom, as we know these days, 25, 30 kids in a classroom. They can't get out of the classroom. They're little, and they just go in and mow them down. So children are a wonderful target for mass murderers because you can get a lot of them very quickly and nobody fights back unless you have got armed people in the school, and they can fight back. So we see in China, they don't have gun access, but they just stab everybody to death in the schools. And then there's other locations that also some people get, they get a little more fancy, and they might, mow down the parade of kids, or just go burst through a traffic light and kill whatever they can get. But they're all basically the same concept. They're mass murderers. And why we have so much of that, and why they wouldn't just off themselves and they have to take everybody out with them, especially children. We have a problem with psychopathy. We have a problem with some kind of disconnect, which is pretty sad. And that's something we need to actually, really focus on as to why this is happening. And it's happening the world over. It's not just in the United States. I do want to comment on that. Was she driving in heels? The funniest thing about the Michaela, that you say that, is that I remember when I was probably like 1920, they had a law you couldn't drive without shoes on. And I remember thinking, what the heck? I can drive in bare feet because my feet can feel the pedals. But you put on heels and you got that much heel and your heel gets stuck underneath. You can't push down on the brake because your heel is under there. It's much more dangerous to have heels. But that's for the braking. For the gas pedal, there's not so much of an excuse because you are actually pressing down on that. So that's pretty much, that's the way it works. Let's say nursing is not a profession, it's a vocation. Yeah, well, you can go one way or the other with that. I mean, I think that's one of those fancy words that you're it's not just something you do for a job, but it's you're called to do it. Well, I guess in that case, profiling must be a vocation. I'm not sure I'll go with that one, but no, that yes and no. I don't. The Idaho case, yes, that was what I call an incel mass murder. It wasn't about just getting one; it was about getting them all. But there's sometimes there's in mass murders there's two different groups. One is a focused group, and one is a whatever I can get. That's that I can just get people in a fishbowl. If you take a look at something like a Fort Hood shooter, who people think killed because it was a terrorist attack, which I don't believe. He was pissed off at the army, and he went in and did a midlife crisis mass murder to get back at the people that he thought deserved it. So a lot of times you see that in businesses. Some ex-employee comes in and wipes everybody out. It's a mass murder, and it's still a psychopath, but they're angry. They've focused their anger on one specific thing. I'm where I'm at today because of what you are doing. Now, when people go after an entire group of people they don't even know, that's anti-society. They're still psychopaths. Their motive is anti-society. In the few business type things, it's more of a case of it's anti those people who, didn't make my life. They ruined my life. And all the motives, mostly it's for your day in the sun. It's to feel good about yourself. That all those people that never paid you any attention and didn't give you what you deserved, I'm going to go get my day in the sun. I'm going to take out as many of them as I can. I'm going to get into the media, and they're going to rave about me. The motives are always questionable, because if they're psychopaths, whether people claim it's racist or it's religious or it's whatever, whatever. Most time that's not the issue. That's not why they committed the crime. They committed the crime for their day in the sun. And sometimes they'll even make up the motive. And a lot of times what's interesting is when they say that's their motive, you find out that if you look at their history, it doesn't even match. But if they can come up with it and it works in the newspaper, you get more interest. Let's say, Leslie, do we know historically if mass murder was just as frequent 75 years ago, regardless of the weapon? Leslie, that's a good question. There are a lot of mass murders that occurred in the past that we don't have the records of, or it's harder to get all the details. And then the other question is, if there are some places that don't have that kind of mass murder as much, it's because you can join the cartel, you can kill people there. You get your psychopathy on over there. War always helps a great deal because hey, you can go kill lots of people in a war. So it's sometimes that there's less mass murder because of the society you're living in, giving opportunities to people to kill and to get that thrill without actually committing a one-off weirdo crime. So it gets a little tricky. And it's like, which one's better? Is it better that we're all lose 100,000 people to war, or is it better that we have one crazy person going to school? Which one is it? It's very tricky. Yeah, that's a good point. Destroying what you cannot have. Yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't like that everybody else is You all smiling. I don't like the fact you smile when I'm not smiling. Yeah. What? Leticia claims she camped with the cartel. Was that on LinkedIn too? It could be. Then we get some more really, like, people who you just know are crackers. And let's go to what's her name. Before I go there, I want to talk more about the female thing, because I was asked about this case and it's just freaking sad. So, and you got to wonder about all the people involved here. So here we have again a woman who ends up killing, supposedly through negligence, 2 women. Now, let me find the article on this one. This is a husband and his wife. Her mother killed 2 of their children, shall we say. She now says her mother should be jailed. And what actually happened? And this is mommy. She's grandma, right? She's 65 years old. What happened was her son, who was 16 months, Ezra, was staying over with grandma, and she supposedly fell asleep. And while she was sleeping, what did supposedly happen with him? Let me find that details on that. Okay, so supposedly her husband was out running errands, and it's always interesting. And my opinion, when people are Munchausen by proxy, it's always interesting how the husbands are just not around at the time these things happen. So a husband goes out to do errands, and during that time, she falls asleep. And the little Ezra managed to open a door, climb under the fence, and head toward a pond and drown. All right. Your husband is left. You know you're in charge of your grandson. But you take a nap. And you leave him unattended. And somehow, and I love the word somehow he gets out of the house, goes under a fence, and falls into a pond and drowns. Is that what happened? Or did grandma take him out of the house and drown him in the pond? I would like to know. But they found it. They decided she was negligent, but she did not get charged with anything. Now we move on. They have another baby. Okay, this is Ezra. All right. Now Ezra, and by the way, that happened 3 days before Christmas when her grandson drowned. 3 days before Christmas. Now Ezra is, how old was she now? The new kid. Ezra is 6. Okay, wait, I'm sorry. That was Ezra. Okay, Uriel. No, Uriel. I've got to get these names straight here. Okay, which one is which? Okay, Uriel is a girl, I think. It's a weird name. 7 months old. Okay, she was 7 months old. Now, mind you, 2021 is when the little boy dies on grandma's property. Then, all right. So anyway, then she gives birth to her 3rd child. This is the woman on the left. This is their 3rd child, and they had not allowed their firstborn son Asher to be alone with the grandmother after Ezra passed, probably was murdered, because they didn't trust the grandmother at all. Really? That's just, why wouldn't you trust her? For God's sake, this drives me crazy. There is, if your parent got your kid killed or killed them, there is no reason on God's earth why any of your children should ever be left alone in their care again. Now, mind you, you can still, if you really believed it was an accident, you want to still love your mother and you want to still allow your mother to have some time in a life with their grandchildren, fine. Invite them over for dinner. Spend time at their house while you're watching. Just tell your mother, I don't trust you. You can tell them that. Look, what happened before, maybe I can forgive you, but I cannot ever leave my child in your care again. And she says, well, If you don't trust me, I don't want to be around you. You say, good, go away then. I would never, ever leave my kid alone. And there's no reason to have to do so. So many people live in a situation where they don't have the grandparents watching their kids, maybe because the grandparents live 3,000 miles away. But there's lots of reasons. You know, you can raise your family without your parents grandparenting the kids alone. You can do that. Lots of people do it. So then what happens? So months after losing Ezra, the grieving mother gives birth to the third child. She was so perfect. In November of 2022, which we're talking just like a year later, she left Uriel, the little girl, in her mother's care while going to get her hair done. This is not an emergency situation. You can wait till your husband is home. You can get if he were, maybe on a Saturday, your husband can watch the kid and you can go to the hairdresser. Maybe you can get a girlfriend who you trust to do that. Why would you leave your kid with the person who killed your other kid? So she leaves the baby. Now get this one. She knew her mother had lunch plans with friends, and she trusted them. Her mother's friends you trust. How does that even make any sense? As she rarely allowed her daughter to be unsupervised. Rarely. What do you mean? Rarely. It should be never. Yuri was at a restaurant with other people that I knew and trusted. They were in a friend group and were keeping her safe. No. Friends do not keep your daughter safe. You put your daughter in the care of your mother, and your mother is the only one that's responsible. Nobody else in that group is responsible. You didn't hire them. It's your mother. If your mother picks up that kid and walks out, those friends can't do a damn thing. And they did. So anyway, and she said, I had supervised many, many, many interactions at that point at my house. Okay, so she said she spent time with her mom and watched her mother, how she handled her. But if you're talking about Munchausen syndrome by proxy and your mother's a murderer, I don't care how many times you sit in front of her, you can never leave a kid alone with her because she's waiting for that moment. All right. But what happens? Mom leaves the restaurant with her mother, takes her granddaughter from the restaurant, puts her in the car. Nobody's with her. She drives home and then leaves the granddaughter in the car in 90-degree heat and just forgot about her. After she returned home from lunch with her friends, she went inside and practiced the piano. When all of a sudden, she remembered the toddler was in the car. But by that time, the child was dead. Now, look, I'm going to say this. Now, I'm surprised they haven't gone with she must have Alzheimer's routine. Okay. If you have never seen Alzheimer's with your mother, if you think that your mother is totally home upstairs, there's no way she would take her granddaughter on the rare occasion she finally gets to be alone with her granddaughter and leave her accidentally in the car. I don't buy it for a minute. I think grandma murdered both those children. At this point, the daughter is now saying she wants her mother charged and both of them want the grandmother charged with murder. However, it says here, now the lawyer's rolling in. He says, argued, the lawyer, that the deaths were obviously an accident. I don't believe that for a minute. They're not obvious to me at all as an accident. The question, was it culpable negligence? I don't think it was even negligence. I personally think she murdered both children. Tracy loves her daughter and her son-in-law and all of her children and grandchildren. I don't think so. Oh, she might love them as long as they're amusing to her, but maybe she thinks it's fun to kill them, which is what Munchausen syndrome by proxy is, where you get great attention from the deaths of people as well as the other things. Everybody's just seeing one narrative. She's responsible. But I'm here to say as much as I ethically can. Dude, you're her lawyer and you said it was an accident. You're not ethical. You're just a lying lawyer. And it's not true. As for Kalia and Drew, that's these are the parents. Kalia and Drew, they want their late children to know that they are sorry and that their lives were taken by someone we believed was worthy of trust. Why did you think they were worthy of trust? She killed one of your kids. Why would you trust her for the second one? She wasn't worthy of trust. I don't know what's wrong with you people. Now, the first one, okay. The husband, maybe I can understand he hasn't grown up with the mom. But I'm going to say The mother of those two children should know what her mother was like, because the mother didn't turn into a psychopath overnight. She had to be raised with that. So I don't know what's going on there, but there was no reason to trust her with any of your kids. And yet you did. First time, as they say, you could, that's on you. But second time, fool me once, but fool me twice. No, you're stupid. And you are, mom and dad. If you left that kid with that grandmother, you too are 100% responsible for that homicide. No, just drives me crazy. And little children who can't protect themselves. And you were more interested in, I guess, I don't know, going to get your hair done and having a relationship with your mother than you were about making sure your kids were safe. Oh, good Lord. Yeah, I'm with that one. Time to take grandma out for a walk in the woods. Mm-hmm. Oh, go with what? Yeah, Jesus. Just super, super sad. Oh, Lord. Oh, yeah, somebody else commented this too. Grandma looks like she's trying not to break into a huge smile in her mugshot. And she might be, just being, she enjoyed. I mean, I don't believe it's negligence. I just don't. I think she committed homicide. And the two easiest ways to commit a homicide of children is water and heat, because each one of those you can claim were accidents. That's why you be very careful when kids end up drowning in the bathtub, drowning in the pool, drowning in the pond, or left in an overheated car. Can it be an accident? Yes, that's why it's so hard to prove. But oftentimes it's homicide, and you can't. It's hard to prove that. So consequently, and even children who are smothered and gets labeled SIDS. There are real SIDS deaths. But hey, you can just put a pillow over your kid's face too and say, well, what happened? So women especially can get away with homicide very, very often. And only way they ever seem to get caught is when the numbers add up. And it's like, wait a minute, did 6 of your children die? And in the case of this grandmother, it's like one drowned in a pond and one you suffer, you're roasted in a car. I'm getting suspicious now. But I don't know. I think grandma will get off. Because, again, also she's grandma. Because, people over 65 like myself, we have little, we're innocent. We got little halos over our heads. And, we're grandmas. We couldn't do anything bad. Like there haven't been 60, 70-year-old, 80-year-old women who've done some pretty vicious crimes. If you're a psychopath young, you're a psychopath when you're older. So I get so tired of the grandma label. The grandpa label. Grandma caught smuggling drugs in Malaysia. Oh no, they're going to hang her but she's a grandmother. She has grandchildren. Well, if you cared about your grandchildren, maybe you wouldn't be smuggling drugs in Malaysia, right? Maybe you're just a drug runner. Maybe you deserve whatever you get. Stop calling it a grandmother. Everybody's got relationships. You have to say the brother, the sister, the child of. I mean, they always put these family things in there to sympathize with the person who's committed the crime, and it really, really bugs me. Oof, really bugs me. Let's see. Oh, the Bambi effect. That could be right there. Yep. What's this one? I saved my son's life every day he's been alive by resisting the urge to strangle him. There is that. And again, that's why I always say it's the one thing that saves most children from a fatal ending is that people love them. But you put people in with them who don't love them, and the risk factor goes up, because sometimes it's hard to love. Children aren't always lovable, they're not. And crying, screaming children are not always fun. So you want to make sure you have love to cover that. And also, it also is very advantageous to have a strong community. And in a country that we don't have women having the family in the home with them to protect and to take that kid out of your arms when it's making you nutsy, okay, I'll walk the child. I'll take the child. I'll do when you leave somebody alone for extended periods of time, going berserko with the kids, it's not a safe thing. But, it's also unlikely that you're going to go to the lengths of actually doing something to a child. unless you've got a personality disorder. It's just, yeah. Let's see what, a couple more things I wanted to do. Let's see, what were the, speaking of children, I would, because it's just on this topic, there was this TikTok thing where a woman said that she adopted a child from Russia at 14 months. And this became a big thing, where people were really pretty nasty to her. And maybe she deserves it, but I don't know. She adopted a child from Russia at 14 months, a little girl, now 13. She says, I wish our agency did more to warn prospective parents about the possibility of RAD. In other words, affective disorder, that the baby was left in an orphanage and wasn't cared for properly. And so the child develops it has inability to connect with people. She says, some say adoption, and she says, I say buyer's remorse, which is pretty sad. And then she says this, I wish she was gone. She says she hates that child. And I have seen this over and over again with parents who adopt out of Russia. And it's because these children are seeming to be institutionalized in orphanages where they just don't interact with the children. So they didn't grow up with that connection. And it's true a lot of times with adopted children from any place, that when a child's been in foster care a lot, or has been with a parent who is drug using and leaves the child just left in the crib for a day or two without taking care of it, those children can suffer. And often they can develop personality disorders because they weren't cared for and they don't have that connection to human beings. And oftentimes they don't trust those human beings. So they can become pretty psychopathic. And it's really sad, because this has been very true with a lot of the Russian adopted children. And the parents don't know what to do, because they bring the child home as a baby or as a 2-year-old or whatever. And the child turns into quite a dangerous character, sometimes killing the pets, sometimes attacking the other children, just being, and so some horrific stuff coming out of that. And, and the thing is, when you're in a situation like that, and you essentially, she's got buyer's remorse. She's got a child, which she doesn't know what to do with, and she's now having an inability to love that child because the child is unlovable. And then you go and you try to get help, and your kid's a psychopath and is only 5 years old. And what do you do? And people say, well, you just got to, you adopted this child. That's your child now, which to a great extent is true. And they'll say, well, what if you had birthed a child and the child turned out this way? Would you dump it? And of course, people say, well, no, that's your child. The other one was not your child. But when you adopt it, it's your child too. But the problem is, when you birth a child, you do have, at least you can say, I was there from the beginning, and I could do everything for this child to make sure the child grows up healthy. But when you're not there for a year or 2 or 3, you don't know. And all those agencies will lie to you, and the child is already manipulative. So it's like, hey, I'm just so happy to have you be my mommy and daddy. And then you're in a living hell with that child. Now, not every adoptive experience is like that, because I know one of my children is adopted. I adopted him at 5, and he's a wonderful boy and a wonderful man who's now almost 40. So, but I saw that attachment disorder thing when he was younger, and I had to really, really work with it. And I'm thankful that he's grown up to be a great member of society, and a good son and a good brother to, and I'm very fortunate. But I've seen a lot of people who weren't so fortunate. And then you have to also question whether the adoptive parent has their own attachment disorder problem because they didn't birth the child. And I've seen that too. And it's kind of sad. I saw that was one person I knew, and they had one birth child and one adopted child. And every time the adopted child did something, they said, it's because he was adopted. And then when the bio kid did something, they didn't say that. And so they kept saying to themselves that everything that was wrong with him was from the adoption, from before they adopted him. And even though they adopted him when he was like 1 day old, I mean, they didn't have a way to say that. They raised him from when he was an infant. So the attachment disorder thing, I think, is on you if your kid is that way. So sometimes adoptive parents do not trust the children, and that's a whole different issue. That's their problem. And sometimes people adopt children for reasons because they want to have a toy. They want to do something good for the world. They want to impress people with their kindness and their generosity. They want a slave to do errands for them. Who knows? So some of the adoptive parents can be bad too. So it's very tricky in these situations too. And this is where I think it's so important that we have really good adoptive agencies who tell the truth and really do a proper analysis of the child's situation and the parent situation, and not just throw up their hands and just say, oh, it'll be all fine. Oof. And so I don't know with this woman. I would say she had the problem, or she adopted a problem. But there is an issue with the Russian orphanages having a very high rate of children with psychopathy because they're not cared for. And this, I don't know if it's changing now, but at least at the time, they would just be in cribs and they would just be left there and just somebody come by and feed them, but nobody was holding them and hugging them and talking to them. And so that'll derange a kid really quick. So pretty sad. But it's not right for children, but it's a tricky situation, adoption. So that was some running around on the internet, and I just thought it was interesting because, again, when we're talking about the health of people, health of children and what they grow up to become, because some of those people grow up to become mass murderers because they lost the ability to connect with human beings when they were very young. And yeah, and we live with the results of that. So, she should have been warned. She might have been warned, but I have noticed that you'd be surprised how much they don't warn you. Because I wasn't warned about how things really were, and yet I feel like I got lucky. Maybe it's because I'm a good adoptive parent. I don't know. Maybe it's because of the personality of my son, but I think a lot of information, I got some information, a lot of things were left out. I had a friend who brought in a little boy into her house, and they didn't tell him that he had sexually assaulted other children at the age of 7. They just left that out. They didn't tell her about the 3-year-old girl that she brought in, that she was a little psychopath and she tried to kill the baby. So, a lot of times you don't get the information because they want to get the child out of their hands and they'll just lie to you. So it's a mess. The whole thing's a mess. And it's, children, that's why it's so important for people never to have children they don't want, because those children aren't toys. They're human beings, for God's sakes. Let's see. Oh, that's interesting. Russia passed a law to ban adopting for other countries just for the fact that children were getting abused in the adoptive family. Now, that's interesting. India was doing the same thing. I think I talked about a case from India where this couple went to India. They picked out this little girl. They brought her back to the United States. And I think they killed her. And then India's like, I don't want Americans adopting kids. It's like, that's not really the issue. And one of the funny things about that is, and this drives me crazy too, is if you adopt a child, some people say, well, I adopted a child from, let's say, the child was adopted a 1-month-old child from India and the birth parents are Hindus. And then they say, well, when you bring her to the United States, you have to raise her as a Hindu. So wait a minute. If the parents are Christian, she can be raised as Christian. It's a baby. The baby doesn't know these things. This is silly. And also, if they're brought to the United States as a baby, they're growing up as Americans. They're not growing up as Indians. And and a Russian child brought to the United States as a baby or a 1-year-old is not a Russian. It's an American. So you raise a child as an American. Just because you happen to be born on this piece of dirt over there doesn't make you part of that culture if you don't ever grow up in that culture. I think it's the stupidest thing ever. I don't understand this. I have to raise a child. I got the child at 1 week from India, so therefore I have to teach the child all about India and its heritage. Its heritage is where the child's parents that are raising it out. That's an American kid. And, it's just silly. I mean, you want to tell the story about where you were born, happened to be born in a country called India. And, if the kid's interested in visiting, just learning about the culture of India, that's fine. Because, I love India. So, yeah, I introduced my granddaughter to things about India, and she was born here. And she's not of Indian descent at all. I teach her about that because I love India, and I like Indian food and pretty Indian clothes, and I like Indian dance, and I go to India. Okay, so that's just a me thing. But, I mean, it's these crazy ideas. What the child needs is a family that loves it. Not a particular culture, not a particular language, not a particular religion. Needs parents that love that child, and they can grow up anywhere in the world. I don't care what they look like. They can grow up any place in the world if they have loving family. So, and if they don't have a loving family where they're at, for God's sakes, they should be able to get a family someplace. So I think these laws are kind of stupid. If there's not enough people in your country to adopt the kids, let the kids have some family someplace. But just don't lie to them and make sure that they're cared for until they get to the adoptive family. That's my point on that. So, yeah. And that's true. Adoption is a delicate situation. It takes a lot to make everything work out well. It does. It is difficult. That is very true. The rehoming of the whole word. It's hard enough to rehome a dog, much less a human being. That's just gonna make me throw up right there. Oh my God. That's correct. Orphans can be suffering from a lack of affection. Yes, they do. They're not even held, a lot of times. And it's, yeah. Okay. One more thing I was going to talk about here. Let's see. Okay. Within that one. Somebody wanted me to talk about this. I think this will be my last one for tonight. This piece of thing. This piece of thing. Okay. Now, if psychopath had a female picture, there we go. It's right there. So anyway, she just attacked her lawyer in court. I'm not. This is. Hold on, let me find this woman's name. Where is it? Okay, this would be. Okay, this is a woman who decapitated her lover. Her name, and I can't pronounce this one either, is Taylor Schabusiness, which is a really weird name. So that's Taylor. Here is Taylor looking hotter. Oh, I'm super hot. And Taylor was married to, oh, come on, where's the picture? Did the picture go missing on me? Oh, no, here it is. Taylor is married to this dude, and he's in prison. And she got pregnant by her husband. I like the saying there, loyalty over love is what it says. He still says he's loyal to her. I forgot what he's in prison for. Anyway, she was pregnant by him. She had a baby, but I don't know where that baby is. I haven't figured that one out. But anyway, she decided while her husband was in prison, she'd hook up with this. Okay. Yeah, him. He looks like a little weasel. Anyway, what is this picture? Oh, this is another picture of the two of them together. Look at that guy. Man, she I don't know. I almost understand why she did what she did. Just looking at that dude. Anyway, she hooked up with him. Now, to have some sex, you see. And she choked him to death during drug-fueled sex. Now, mind you, again, we always beware of this. When a perpetrator tells you what happened, good portion of the time, it's a big fat lie. So she has stories about how she choked him, that they had these chains. And like he brought the chains and there were two of them, one for her and one for him, only he got choked and she didn't, you see. And let's see. Let me find out the really good explanation of what happened. It's a really, okay, where is it? There was a better version of this description, which of how. Okay, no, I'm gonna have to go back to the original one I had. Maybe it's over here, over in the Sun, which is such a fine paper. Yes. All right. Okay, here's her explanation. So I think this is worth listening to. So, okay. So what happens is, all right, so the guy his name is something like Shad Therian. That's that creature on the right. And okay, I shouldn't be so mean about him. He's the victim of this, and a horrifying thing happened to him. I'm sorry, but first of all, she's a married lady. Second of all, he hooked up, and third, there was drugs involved and meth and stuff. So I shouldn't say that. He didn't deserve what he got, but boy, did he get a lot. Jesus. Anyway, they apparently went to high school together, so it's not like he didn't know this girl was whacked, okay? And they both left school without graduating. Now, that guy, he'd been arrested for disorderly conduct and resisting an officer, but his obituary, the people described him as kind and compassionate, a talented artist who also enjoyed wood carving. All right. So then, at 3 a.m. on February 23rd, 2022, Tara Pakanish, I guess that's his mom, discovered her son's severed head in a bucket in her basement. The authorities quickly arrived at the home in Green Bay and were told by the victim's mother that Schabusiness, weird name, Schabusiness, was the last person to have seen him alive. Authorities quickly caught up with the accused, who was reportedly found in her home with dried blood on her clothing and hands. Good move. Upon searching Schabusiness's vehicle, they also found a crock-pot box with additional human body parts, including legs. The victim's penis was also said to be found in the bucket. Yeah. Additional body parts were later discovered, including an upper torso and other internal organs in a storage tote bag. When police interviewed Schabusiness and asked her what happened, she reportedly responded, "That's a good question," and claimed to have blacked out. That's a lot of crap to do when you're blacked out. And she killed him and she chopped him into pieces and hit everything while she blacked out. Mm-hmm. Okay, so supposedly now this is where her story comes in, where you can't actually believe it. So maybe the dude isn't. I mean, he's got a few issues apparently, but maybe he's really a nice guy and he just takes terrible pictures. All right, so she said they were together on February 22nd, smoking meth and having sex, which just smoking meth is just not a healthy thing to do. So after they arrived at the victim's mother's house, so she goes to his house. So he's living with his mother, and she goes to the mother's house. And they incorporated chains into their sexual activities. She allegedly strangled the victim after going crazy. She didn't mean to kill him, but she did like choking him. Okay, she was having such a good time, she couldn't help continuing killing him. And then she supposedly had sex with the victim after he was dead. And I'm not going to get into that description. It'll get me demonetized. And then she told the police they'd have fun finding the rest of his parts. Mm-hmm. And they said, well, they should be maybe in the basement, maybe they're in the van. So now she's in court on charges of first-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, and third-degree sexual assault. And she's being held on a $2 million cash bond. And now they were trying to decide whether she was fit to stand trial, and she attacked her defense attorney. And of course, he didn't really get hurt, but she attacked him. And I think, did he quit? They delayed the competency hearing. I thought he quit, but I wouldn't even be surprised if he set that up just to make her look crazy. But if this woman gets off she got off on some killing apparently, but if she gets off on this and called insane, this will be highly unfortunate. So the other thing, let's see let's see, hold on a second. Let's see if he quit the defense attorney. I'm just trying to find out if the defense attorney quit or not. They just postponed the trial. I don't think he did quit. So who knows? Maybe he just set that up. So anyway, here is a very good picture of a psychopath. Now, people could say it was drug fuel. That's what the defense attorney is going to say, or she has bipolar disorder, and she had bipolar disorder, and she did meth, and it made her crazy. She made there were a lot of steps here. One step after another step after another step after another step. And again, we are adults. And if we have this problem, we don't go here, we don't go here, we don't go here, we don't go here. She did them all. And after she did them all, she said, ha, guess I did them all. So clearly she's got no conscience. She's a psychopath. But even if you want to try to say she isn't, she made these choices. And I guess I have very little sympathy for people who do dangerous drugs. I'm sorry. I don't, because dangerous drugs change your behavior. And, generally speaking, they won't cause you to kill people. But if you're the killing type, they might encourage you to do so. So you shouldn't do those drugs because they might send you to the next level, which you might not have had quite the energy for if you hadn't done the damn drugs. But, and who you're doing the drugs with, I mean, this woman's a whack job. She's obviously a psychopath. That this guy, she's bigger than he is. I mean, he's not a big dude. He's a little dude. And I don't know that he bought change or she brought the change, and she's lying about that, but he tangled with the wrong woman. And again, that's a choice. We make choices in our lives, and I'm not saying he deserved to get killed, but he put himself in a very dangerous situation with a dangerous person. And and you become a victim when you put yourselves in those situations. Hopefully you could have avoided them, like avoid this woman like the plague, and she should never be on the outside of a prison. Yeah, he is a deer in headlights. He was sadistic. She's extremely sadistic, and she loved. She said she enjoyed watching him die. So she got a kick out of that, as many serial killers do. She enjoyed watching the life go out of him in his eyes, that kind of thing. So, yeah. So if they you watch a case like this and it goes to trial, and you're like, really? If anybody lets this woman get anything but maximum, it's ridiculous. And the other thing people don't seem to ever take into account is that, let's even assume that the person she killed, they weren't too sympathetic toward, right? Let's say a serial killer kills a serial killer, like the television show, right? Dexter, which I do not watch and will not watch. But let's say a serial killer kills a serial killer. Does that mean you should give him a lesser sentence because the person he killed is not likable or deserve to die? Because the person who's doing the homicide is still homicidal. And next time it might be somebody else. Next time it might be the teenage girl down the street, the 6-year-old child, the teacher walking home from school. So a homicidal person is a danger to the community, regardless of who the heck that they get knocked off. Same thing if, some guys killing prostitutes. And now a lot of times people say, oh, the police didn't care because it was just prostitutes. I don't think that's true. I think the problem is it's hard to determine certain things with prostitutes, because a lot of them disappear because they have drug problems, or they go off with a pimp, or they do whatever they do. And sometimes it's hard to know they're even dead. And then when they're dead, you don't know why they're dead. Was it the pimp who killed them? Was it a John who was really a serial killer? It gets complicated. But let's say for whatever reasons you say, well, they were just really down and out prostitutes. They were drug using. They don't like prostitutes, and they put themselves out there to get killed. Let's say you have that attitude. Okay. The guy's still a killer. He's still a killer. And when you have that attitude and he shows up and kills your child, then what you going to say? So people, no matter who they kill, are killers. And you can't trust them out there. And so it doesn't matter. And a lot of times what we'll see a jury do is they will lean to a lesser sentence when the victim is not that, just doesn't pull their heartstrings. But that doesn't change the killer. So that shouldn't make any difference who the victim is. Not one bit. The killer's a killer. So, yeah, let's see what else we have here. I'm gonna leave some of your comments in the chat room. Well, I'm not gonna make those jokes. I'm not. All right, that's gonna be it. Oh, what am I going to do this weekend? I am going to do the Springfield 3 case. I have had tremendous amount of requests for the Springfield 3 case. These are 3 women that went missing in Missouri, never seen again. A mother, her daughter, and her daughter's friend. Very bizarre case. And I spent last night looking for my notes on this case because years ago when this happened, I was contacted by somebody and I ended up talking with Stacy McCall was the friend that disappeared. I'd had communications with her mom. I also had communications with law enforcement on this. Gave a semi-profile because I only knew what I knew from outside, and I talked to the police, and they were considering bringing me in on that case. And it is one of those things where somebody wants me to come in, but they go to the upper people, and then that decision is never actually made. But I do have my communications with the detective and what my thoughts were on the case. And it was driving me crazy because I couldn't find the dang stuff. I'm like, what the heck? It has to be in the files somewhere. And this is computer files. But, sometimes when you put in certain search engines, you can't come up with it. So it took me a heck of a long time and a whole bunch of hard drives because this is so long ago. This is probably 20 years ago. But I did analyze that case previously and had some involvement in it. So when somebody suggested, I'm like, yeah, I think that I did something with that case. Not as much as I would have liked. I would have loved to have been actually brought into that case, but for real. But didn't happen. And the case is still unsolved today and lots of theories running around. So I'm going to be doing the Springfield 3 this weekend. So I hope you'll be there and enjoy it. So because there's lots of interesting points on that case, and some things that still drive me crazy. So I'm going to see sort of with the points I make, what do you think what these things mean? What are the important pieces of evidence, and how do those pieces of evidence go together to come up with a reasonable theory of who might have done it and why they might have done it? And it's a very tricky case, so it's not easy. It's not definitely not an easy one, but fascinating. So hopefully you'll. Oh well, hi Andini. Sorry I'm late. Well, we all have lives that aren't always here on the internet with me, so that's okay. And yes, it will be public, so everybody gets to see it anyway. So again, if you're here for the first time, do like and subscribe, and join Patreon below, support the channel. And I'm always appreciative of that. Oh, if that was your first time here, hi Karen. Oh, I'm glad you had fun. That's the idea. And yeah, I like being here with you guys. So I'll see you this weekend, and I might do something in between. We have I forgot to mention, we do have the end of the Madeleine McCann claim by Julia Wendell, the Polish woman who claims she was Madeleine McCann. The DNA is back. Oh, she's not Madeleine McCann. Oh, she's 100% Polish. What a surprise. And the birth certificate is there. So the whole thing is nonsense. But don't worry. She's already moving on to something new with her handler, Fia, who is the other scammer. And apparently she had, accordingly, she had somewhere around 8 years old, she had something happen and she got a brain concussion or something cracked her skull. She didn't know anything for a year. And also she says that she was riding camels in a desert, and she was also hang gliding with some man half naked. So, and she's going to have brain surgery. So, a scammer will always find a new scam. They'll always keep rolling things out. And I do think Fia will just dump Julia. She's going to milk it a little further, and then she'll just dump her because she's going to be annoying. So who knows? But they're still out there. They're still out there on Instagram, just talking up a whole bunch of crap. So, but finally, at least in the public eye, their proof is there, which it always was obvious to begin with, that this Julia girl was not Madeleine McCann, who's been dead for all these years anyway. So I don't think she was resurrected. So anyway, all right. So anyway, I will see you all hopefully this weekend, and I'm glad you were here, and it was fun as usual. And so now we have all kinds of women we cannot like. I mean, what I tell you. But okay, if you're out there, you're a guy and you've got a wife or a girlfriend, or you're a female who has a girlfriend, or this is your mom, or it's your daughter or your sister. Don't give them a break. Look for, or if it's your grandmother, if you have children to care for, they come first, not all these other people. You got to keep them safe. So just please remember that. Keep them safe. Came back. Wait a minute. Things aren't working. Wait a minute. This is the ending, official ending. Bye.